My DIL said. Sign this or you'll never see your grandkids again. I signed nothing. The court signed for me. I was standing at the kitchen counter when Amber slammed a stack of papers against my chest, so hard that the top page scraped my skin. The sound echoed across the tiles like a slap. She did not even wait for the papers to settle before she said, "Sign it, and sign it right now. Your name might sound elegant, but your life has amounted to nothing. You do not deserve to stay in this house. Not one more day." I looked at her, the woman who had married my son, and slowly turned him into a stranger. Her eyes were narrowed, sharp with contempt, as if my mere existence offended her. Lucas stood a few steps behind her, his arms crossed, his face blank in that practiced way he used whenever he wanted to avoid choosing between his wife and his conscience. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply watched me, his own mother, being forced into a corner. Amber jabbed the stack of papers again into my hands. "This is the relinquishment form. You sign this and you give up your right to live here. You also give up any claim you think you have on this property. And trust me, and whatever claim you think you have is pathetic." Anyway, I read the first few lines. Voluntary surrender of residence and ownership interest. My fingers trembled just enough for her to smirk. "You see," she said, "you are old, fragile, out of place. This house should belong to people who can actually use it, not someone who walks around like a museum relic." Lucas finally shifted his weight. "Mom, it is better if you just sign it. We need to move forward. Amber and I have plans, and this house is part of those plans." A pressure formed in my chest, not from age but from disappointment. Lucas had been kind once, so gentle that neighbors joked I had raised a man with two hearts. Now he stood with none. Amber leaned in closer. "Do you know what drives me crazy, Anne? Everyone in this town keeps saying your name is so beautiful. And Smith sounds like royalty, they say. Do you have any idea how insulting that is? My name does not get that kind of reaction. Never has, never will. And I am tired of hearing people praise a name that belongs to a woman who has nothing." I inhaled slowly. There are insults that land on your skin, and there are insults that cut straight to your ribs. That one cut deep, not because she demeaned my name, but because she revealed something raw and twisted inside her. She hated me for something I never chose. Something as simple as the sound of the name my mother gave me. Inside, I told myself, my daughter-in-law hates even my name. I wanted to walk away, but Amber blocked the path and slapped the papers onto the counter. "I want your signature, Anne. I want it today. I want it now. And if you think I am playing, try refusing me again." I tried to speak calmly. "Amber, this is my home. I have lived here longer than you have been alive." "That is the problem," she snapped. "You have lived too long." My breath caught, and before I could respond, she lifted her chin toward the hallway camera that Lucas had installed. "Say it on camera, Lucas. Tell her she has to sign." Lucas looked at me for only a second before lowering his eyes. "Mom, please just sign it." For a moment I forgot how to stand. The world did not tilt, but my heart did. When your own child stands with your tormentor and asks you to erase yourself, something inside you begins to break quietly, the way old beams crack inside the walls of an abandoned house. But I did not fall apart. Not yet. Not in front of her. Around that moment, as my hands tightened on the counter, the memory of every quiet humiliation I had swallowed rose inside me like an old wound reopening. I knew I needed to stay steady because this was only the beginning of whatever storm Amber intended to unleash. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. Amber drummed her nails on the counter. "You think Lucas will protect you? Look at him. He is not even defending you. He knows you are in the way." Lucas flinched, but he did not deny it. I whispered, "Why are you doing this to me?" She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Because I am tired of living under the same roof as a woman whose very name makes people light up. I am tired of feeling overshadowed by a woman who does not even try. I am tired of pretending to respect you when all you do is stand there like you deserve space in my life. This is not your home anymore, and it is ours." The papers lay between us like a trap, waiting for its prey. I felt every ounce of her resentment, every inch of her desire to erase me from the Smiths family. But beneath her fury, I also felt something else. Desperation. Desperation to control. Desperation to win. Desperation to destroy anything she could not become. I straightened my back despite the ache in my joints. I will not sign. Amber froze, her expression turning sharp and dangerous. Lucas paused, and in that instant I realized something. They had no idea what rights I truly had in this house, and they had no idea what my husband had done before he died. They thought they were cornering a frail old woman. They were wrong. I used to believe hatred needed a reason, something concrete, something earned. But with Amber, the hatred arrived before I ever had a chance to offend her. It started the very first day Lucas brought her home. Long before she ever stepped into my kitchen or knew a single thing about the life I had lived. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs, the tension in her smile, the stiffness in her shoulders, the way her eyes lingered on me just a little too long, as if she were trying to measure herself against me. I did not understand then, but I do now. She came into my life already looking for a rival. When I introduced myself to her that day and said, "I am Anne," something in her changed. It was subtle, but I felt it. I had spent a lifetime with that name. A name my mother whispered into my ear on the day I was born. I never thought it held power, but Amber heard it differently. In her world, image mattered more than integrity. Names were brands, appearances were currency, and Anne did not fit the kind of woman she wanted me to be. She told Lucas later that evening, not knowing I could hear through the thin hallway walls. "Her name sounds too refined, too graceful. People will think she is better than me." Lucas laughed it off, unaware of the insecurity growing inside the woman he loved. That insecurity deepened the following weekend when Lucas brought her to a family barbecue. My mother-in-law, who had always been fond of elegant simplicity, smiled at Amber and then turned to me and said, "Your name still sounds like it belongs in a novel," and Amber's expression froze. She recovered quickly enough to smile, but I saw the brightness in her eyes dim. I did not understand that such an innocent compliment would solidify her resentment, making me a shadow she feared would swallow her light. But the name was only the beginning. What truly poisoned her was the bond between Lucas and me, a bond built out of years of hardship and healing, something she could not imitate or replace. I was the one who sat beside Lucas on the kitchen floor the night he failed his first college exam. I was the one who drove him to the hospital when he broke his arm. I was the one he hugged without hesitation. When he told Amber, "My mother is the strongest woman I know," she took it as an insult, not an expression of gratitude. She later accused me of shaping him into someone who valued emotional connection more than ambition. She saw my influence as competition, not love. The worst moment for her, I think, came on their wedding day. Amid the photos and laughter and endless posing, the photographer asked Lucas to take one picture with just me. He put his arm around my shoulders the way he always had. I did not think twice about it, but Amber noticed. She watched as the photographer praised the picture and said, "There is something special about a bond like that." Amber's smile hardened, and though she said nothing, I could feel the resentment spreading inside her like a slow-moving flame. After the wedding, the image resurfaced in their digital albums. Out of all the pictures, it was that one Lucas kept framed on his desk. Not because I was in it, but because it reminded him of where he came from. Amber mentioned it constantly. "You love your mother more than your wife," she said once, half joking and half threatening. It was the kind of statement that carries more truth than humor. Her jealousy did not come from strength but from fear. She feared that no matter what she bought, how she dressed, or how carefully she crafted her life, she would never possess the effortless dignity she imagined in my name, or the steadiness she saw in my presence. She feared that I reminded Lucas of a love she could never replace. She feared I would always be a standard she could not reach. And so she began to hate me. Not for anything I had done, but for everything she wished she could be. Not for words I spoke, but for the silence in which she heard her own insecurities reflected back at her. Her cruelty was not born of strength. It came from a well of inadequacy so deep she spent years throwing her anger into it, hoping it would fill. But hatred never fills a void. It only deepens it. I was not her enemy. I never wanted to be. Yet to her, my very existence was an insult. And that was the beginning of everything that followed. There is a particular kind of loneliness that settles into your bones when you live in a house where your footsteps are heard, but your presence is not felt. That was my life inside the Smiths' home. A place where I had once planted roses, scrubbed floors, and cooked meals now felt like a narrow hallway where my existence was merely tolerated. I had contributed 70% of the money that built that house. But to Amber, I was nothing more than an extra body taking up her air. It started subtly. The first time I noticed the shift, Amber moved the medicine cabinet from the hallway into their bedroom without mentioning it. When I asked where my pain medication had gone, she shrugged and said, "Your memory must be slipping, and..." But the truth was clear when days later she added a small lock to the drawer where the medications were kept. I saw the silver key tucked under her shirt. "You do not need all those pills," she said. "People your age get addicted to things. Better safe than sorry." I wanted to argue that they were prescribed, that they were necessary for my joints, which stiffened every morning like rusted hinges. But I stopped myself. Amber chose battles she could win loudly. I chose silence because I still had to live with her. Amber's control grew in other ways too. She insisted that I cook dinner every evening, even when my hands ached from peeling vegetables. She said my food tasted like the past, and that it was the least I could contribute. After meals, she would push the dishes toward me with a fork still dripping sauce, saying, "Clean up. The kitchen is not going to wash itself." If I wanted to use the heater in my bedroom during the winter nights, which felt colder than usual as my body aged, Amber would unplug it the moment she saw the cord. "Electricity is expensive," she said. "You want us to go broke keeping you warm?" Lucas, who had once burst into my room with a blanket when the temperature dropped, now simply echoed whatever she said. "Amber is right, Mom. Be mindful. We are trying to save for our future," he said. But what he meant was hers. I watched the boy I raised disappear piece by piece. Amber fed him lines about loyalty, unity, adulthood, and how a man should put his wife above everyone else. Those ideas are not wrong in themselves, but she wielded them like weapons. She knew how to twist devotion into something selfish. She knew how to make him choose her, even when the choice cost him a piece of himself. He stopped sitting with me in the evenings. He stopped checking if I needed help carrying groceries. He stopped asking how my day was. He never raised his voice, but he stopped raising his heart too. "There is no point talking to you, Mom," he said once when I asked what was wrong. "You always make things emotional." I wanted to tell him emotions are not weaknesses. They are reminders that the soul is still breathing. But he had been coached too well. His silence toward me was Amber's victory. Amber used her words like chisels, sculpting a reality where I was the burden, and she was the victim. She made comments every chance she got. Casual enough to hide the venom, but sharp enough to leave a sting. "You are old, Anne. What do you even offer in this house? Your name might be pretty, but your usefulness expired years ago. Do not look at me like that. I am doing you a favor by keeping you here at all." Every word chipped away at the home I once loved. At night, when the house grew quiet, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator, my silent companion, I would sit on the edge of my bed and think about Thomas. I would close my eyes and see him standing in our old living room on the day he signed the life estate document. His hands were warm around mine as he said, "And you will always have this home. Even if I am gone, no one can force you out. Not Lucas. Not anyone." Back then, I laughed at the seriousness in his voice because I could not imagine a world where our son would forget who he was. I could not imagine a world where a woman like Amber would walk into our lives and start rearranging it like furniture she did not like. I could not imagine needing protection from my own family. But Thomas had understood something I did not. Maybe he knew grief changes people. Maybe he knew love can be manipulated by the wrong hands. Maybe he knew his absence would create a space that someone else could fill with bitterness. I relied on that memory more than I ever admitted. It was the only warmth I had in a house where the heater stayed off. It was the only affirmation that my life mattered in a place determined to make me feel disposable. It was the only promise that contradicted Amber's daily mantra that I had no worth, no rights, no place. I repeated Thomas's words quietly to myself when Amber walked past me without looking, or when Lucas dismissed me with a nod instead of a smile. That memory kept me steady. Even as I felt myself shrinking into the corners of a home I once filled with laughter and cinnamon-scented mornings. Amber believed that shutting drawers, unplugging heaters, and stealing medications would make me smaller. But these were not signs of my weakness. They were signs of her desperation. People do not try that hard to erase what is truly insignificant. And deep down I sensed that she feared something. Not my presence, not my age, not even my bond with Lucas. She feared the one thing she could not control. The truth about this house. And soon, very soon, she would learn that truth the hard way. The winter night that everything shifted did not begin dramatically. There was no storm warning on the radio. No announcement that temperatures would drop far below what our Texas town usually endured. It simply grew cold quietly, sharply, in a way that pierced through the windows before anyone realized how deep it would settle. But my body felt it first. My knees stiffened, my hands trembled. The familiar ache in my hip crawled upward. I knew what I needed. The medication that eased the pain just enough for me to sleep. I opened the kitchen drawer where I used to keep my pills. Empty. The next drawer empty. The small cabinet where the coffee mug sat, nothing. My heart tightened in my chest as the truth became obvious. Amber had taken them. She had been moving them around for weeks, claiming forgetfulness or accusing me of misplacing them. But tonight she had made sure I had no access at all. Finally, I saw the glint of a small silver key dangling from a hook near their bedroom door. My medication was behind that key, under her control, just like everything else she wanted to take from me. The pain sharpened with every breath. I tried not to groan. It made me feel weak, and weakness was something Amber fed on. I steadied myself on the counter and started walking to the bathroom, hoping warm water might help loosen the tightness in my joints. But the second I pushed the door open, it slammed back against me with a force that knocked me off balance. My shoulder hit the floor first, then my hip, and finally my elbow. The pain shot through me like electricity. I heard Amber's voice before I saw her face. "What are you doing out of bed, Anne? Trying to spy on us? Or are you just confused again?" Her silhouette filled the doorway, arms crossed, eyes cold. I tried to push myself up, but the floor felt far too hard, and my body felt far too heavy. My breath came out in short, shallow bursts, the kind of breath that comes when dignity is slipping through your fingers. Lucas appeared behind her, half asleep, hair told, wearing the same expression he had worn for months. Resignation. He saw me on the floor, saw his own mother struggling, and all he said was, "Mom, you have to be more careful, more careful." As if my bruises were accidents, I kept choosing. Amber stepped closer and placed a stack of papers on the bathroom rug beside me. "You know what would solve all of this? You know what would make everyone's life easier? Just sign." I stared at the papers. Even from the floor I could read the bold letters near the top. Voluntary release of residence rights. The words were so smooth, so polite, so dangerously neat. Words designed to take everything from me. Amber crouched down, her knees cracking slightly as she lowered herself to my level. But she did not help me stand. She simply hovered like a visitor in a museum, observing something broken behind glass. "Sign it, and," she whispered. "Sign it and we will stop all of this. Sign it and you will not have to worry about making things worse." Her tone changed. No softness, only cold calculation. "Sign it to stop ruining our future." I felt the sting behind my eyes before I felt the tears themselves. Not because of her words, but because Lucas did nothing to protect me. He stood there like a witness who preferred not to be called to the stand. "Lucas," I whispered. "Help me," he hesitated. I saw a flicker, something human, something old inside him. But Amber placed a hand on his arm and the flicker died. "She is trying to manipulate you," Amber said. "She wants to stay here forever. She wants to control everything." "You know that," Lucas swallowed. "Mom, just do what she asks." I closed my eyes. I remembered how Lucas used to sit beside me when he was little, pressing dandelions into books so he could save summer forever. I remembered how he cried when he scraped his knee and I carried him inside even though my back ached. I remembered how proud he was when he bought his first truck and how he said, "I could not have done any of this without you, Mom." That boy was gone. I forced my palms against the floor and pushed myself upright. My hips screamed, but I did not give Amber the satisfaction of hearing it. I reached the edge of the sink and steadied myself. The cold light above us revealed the bruising already forming on my arm. Amber lifted the papers again, tapping them against her palm. This is your last chance. Sign it. End this nonsense. Her voice slithered through the air like something poisonous. She believed she had broken me. She believed this night would end with her victory. I looked from the papers to her face. Then I said steady and clear, "No." Amber froze. Lucas blinked. The air between us tightened like a rope being pulled from both ends. "No," Amber repeated as if she had never heard the word before. "You think you have a choice? You think you can keep getting in our way?" I straightened my back despite the agony screaming inside me. "I will not sign away my home because you want more money, Amber. And I will not sign away my dignity because you hate the sound of my name." Her mouth twitched with fury. Lucas stepped back as if fearing the explosion that was coming. Amber leaned in so close I could feel the heat of her breath. "You will regret this, Anne." But she was wrong. This was the night I stopped shrinking. This was the night I understood exactly who they were and exactly who I still was. And this was the night the path to justice quietly began. The morning after that winter night felt strangely quiet, as if the house itself were holding its breath. My hip throbbed with every step I took, but I forced myself into the kitchen to make coffee, needing the warmth to remind me I was still present in this house, even if Amber wanted me erased. I moved slower than usual, and I guess Amber noticed. She smirked when she passed by me, freshly dressed, hair curled, makeup perfect. She always looked her best when she planned to do her worst. Lucas came downstairs next, rubbing his eyes. He avoided looking at me. Amber nudged him toward the back door. "We will talk outside." She doesn't need to hear this. But when someone does not want you to hear something, the universe finds a way to carry their voices to you just the same. I did not follow them, but I did move close enough to the half-open window above the sink to hear their whispers. At first, I heard only Amber's frustration. Then the words became clear. "She has to sign Lucas." Amber hissed. "The bank will not approve the loan unless all the owners agree. I am not letting her ruin the studio over some sentimental nonsense." Lucas said nothing at first. I imagined him glancing around, making sure no one saw the hesitation on his face. He had forgotten how to have an opinion that was not fed to him by Amber. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and worn. "It is complicated. She helped pay for this house. You know that." Amber scoffed. "She contributed some money, sure, but that was ages ago, and she did it decades ago while living in some fantasy marriage. That does not entitle her to live here forever. She is old. Things change. We have to move forward." A soft buzzing filled my ears. I held the counter to steady myself. Amber's voice sharpened. "All she has to do is sign and everything will be fine. The bank gives us the money. We open the studio and our life finally starts. I am not waiting another year because of a stubborn old woman." A stubborn old woman. That was what I had become. Not a mother, not a widow, not a woman who spent her youth working so Lucas could have opportunities Amber never knew. Just an obstacle. Lucas sighed. "If she doesn't sign, what then?" Amber did not hesitate. "Then she leaves one way or another." The chill that went through me was not from the cold. It was the realization that she meant every word. Their voices faded as they walked further into the yard. I stepped away from the window, each breath coming harder than the last. So this was the truth. They were not simply trying to force me out emotionally. They needed my signature for money, for business, for dreams they believed mattered more than my existence. I was not simply inconvenient. I was necessary, a door they could not open without me. But the more they pushed, the more I felt something old waking inside me. Resilience, the piece of myself that Thomas had always seen. I stepped outside to get some air, clutching my sweater tight. The morning was crisp, and the grass still held frost in its blades. I walked slowly to the porch, and that is when I heard someone call my name. "And are you all right?" I turned and saw Helen Burrows standing at the edge of her driveway. She was a kind woman with a gentle face, and the instincts of someone who paid attention to the world around her. Her eyes widened as she looked down. "You are barefoot," she said. I looked down too. I had not even noticed. My feet were red, stiff, pressed against the cold ground. I must have walked out without thinking. "I suppose pain does that to a person," I said, though my voice did not convince either of us. Helen came closer, lowering her voice. "I saw you last night. You were out here too." Was everything all right? I opened my mouth then closed it. For a moment, I considered telling her everything. The fall, the screaming, the papers. But something held me back. Pride, fear, habit. People my age often learn to endure quietly. We do not expect rescue. Instead, I said softly, "Things have been difficult." Her expression softened with worry. "If you ever need anything, and my house is always open." I thanked her and went back inside before Amber or Lucas noticed us speaking. I did not want them to twist a simple kindness into something dangerous. Later that evening, Amber summoned me to the dining room like a dictator calling her subject. She spread a fresh stack of papers across the table, neatly aligned, as if the precision made her cruelty professional. "Here it is again," she said. "The agreement. You will sign it tomorrow morning. I am tired of waiting." Lucas stood behind her, silent as ever. Amber tapped the top page with her nail. "Sign it, or tomorrow you will be out of this house. I am done playing nice." Her definition of nice was astonishing. She leaned forward, lowering her voice to a whisper meant to humiliate. "One signature and one simple signature, and your problems disappear. Or you can refuse again and pack your bags." I looked at the papers. I looked at her. And inside something shifted, not with fear but with clarity. Tomorrow would not go the way Amber believed. The line had been drawn, and I was done being invisible. I did not sleep the night before the hearing. I lay awake listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator and the quiet creaks of a house that once held laughter and now held only pressure. My hands ached, not just from the fall, but from the weight of what was coming. For months, I had been shrinking myself to survive under Amber's roof. But today I would stop shrinking. Today, someone else would finally see what had been happening in the shadows of the Smiths' home. Lucas drove us to the courthouse. Amber sat in the front seat, tapping her nails against her phone, rehearsing the lies she planned to tell. She had dressed in dusty pink, probably choosing a color that made her look tender and delicate. Her voice was soft when she spoke to Lucas, but the glances she sent me through the rearview mirror were sharp and venomous. "Remember," Amber murmured, "we are here to protect our future. Do not let her guilt trip you." Lucas only nodded. He did not look back at me. He just tightened his grip on the steering wheel until his knuckles widened. I turned my gaze to the window, watching the Texas landscape slide by. I thought of Thomas, then of the last day he had breath in his lungs and the way he whispered, "And do not let this world push you out of the home you built." He had said it as if he knew a storm was coming. As if he knew I would one day need protection even from the people I loved most. Inside the courthouse, the air felt heavier than winter. We took our seats and I folded my hands in my lap, willing them not to shake. When my attorney, Richard Salazar, arrived, he placed a brief but reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Today will be difficult," he whispered. "But truth has a way of rising, Anne." The judge entered, stern and unbending, with gray hair pulled into a low bun and glasses perched at the tip of her nose. The kind of woman who had seen enough lies to recognize them before they were spoken. Amber began first as I expected. With her polished voice, she described me as confused, emotionally unstable, and resistant to change. She told the court that I was obstructing her and Lucas's ability to build a better life. She insisted that I refused to sign because I enjoyed control. She even said, "We want what is best for her, Your Honor, but she is making things very difficult." She sounded like a woman pleading for mercy while hiding a knife behind her back. Lucas spoke next, quieter. "We were only trying to move forward. My mother has been challenging. She does not like Amber, and it has made the house uncomfortable." Hearing my son say those words felt like taking a step forward only to find no ground beneath.